Nightingale has finally been released, and I will not be playing it. After the game was announced in 2021, release was expected in 2022. The game then endured multiple delays until now being launched into early access after months of alpha playtesting. The reason I bring this up is because getting the game to its current state has taken a lot of work, and the devs should have received ample feedback on what's wrong with it, and yet here we are. Which brings me to the main point of this video, and that is that Nightingale just simply isn't ready yet. Now, it could very well make huge strides over the coming months, and I expect it to, but as it stands today in February of 2024, I'm not going to be playing it, and even though I received the game for free, and huge shout out to Inflection for giving it to me, I don't think that the $30 price tag is money well spent, at least not right now. So let me give you a little bit of background. I played Nightingale during the alpha playtest, I played during the pre-release build, and I've played the release build now as well, each for about 6 hours or so, and so I've only truly experienced the early game, but these experiences have turned me off enough that once finished for the day, done filming, I have really no desire to jump back in again the following day. And to summarize my experience for you, it was just boring. Nightingale has all of the familiar features that survival games typically have. There's crafting stations, encumbrance, harvesting resources, building, inventory management, hunting, exploration, puzzles, combat, farming, and even a compelling story if you're willing to read page after page after page of notes. But if you ask me, I don't think that any of these are done particularly well, and it really does pain me to say this because I was so excited for Nightingale. I don't want to focus on every little single nitpicky gripe that I have with the game because I just don't want to be that kind of channel. I want to focus on games that I love and that I enjoy. So I'll just give you kind of a brief overview of some areas that I think that Nightingale needs to improve in for me to come back and give it another try in the future. The most glaring shortcoming of Nightingale is combat and the AI. I did all of my fighting with either an axe, pickaxe, or the sling bow, and none of them provided any sort of satisfaction in slaying the Bound, which is one of the primary enemy factions, hunting wildlife, fighting creatures, or defeating this boss automaton knight. I mean, you can just tell by watching this that the combat is incredibly janky. I don't need to break it down for you step by step. Everyone jumps around all over the place. Bodies flop around like dying fish. Animals run amok, and when startled, they mostly just get stuck on rocks. It's sloppy, and I like combat in my video games, so this is a huge issue for me. Now, there is a hireable companion right out of the gate. I think of it like Kelvin from Sons of the Forest, just someone to help you get chores done around your base, albeit this is an extremely simplified version of Kelvin. She, in this case, she will do tasks for you depending on what tool you give her, and she'll help out in combat, but the fact, honestly, that she just teleports around so much absolutely kills the immersion for me, and there's really no way to interact with her. But she does have unlimited carry weight, so you can just load up her inventory, and that is very helpful for hauling wood and stone around. So for this playthrough that we're watching right now, I chose to live in the forest, and for a previous run, I lived in the desert, and that was a huge mistake. The desert was just awful due to constantly managing your temperature and the resource scarcity. Anyway, I built this house here to make sure that I experienced some of the building system, and I don't know, I wasn't really impressed. The building is done using ghost structures. Once you have a layout, you can just deposit resources in it to finish the job, and that's fine. And admittedly, I hadn't really unlocked the really fancy building sets, so I was just building using wood and stone. But again, sometimes it's the little things that ruin it. The grass poking up through the floor, not being able to interact with your roof pieces from the ground if you need to deconstruct them. There's an extremely cluttered build menu, and as far as I can tell, there's no way to simply upgrade the material type for your structure, so if you wanted to use a different building set, you'd have to deconstruct and reconstruct again, which, oh my god, it sounds so tedious to me. And there's this arbitrary build limit of 300. Now, this house here that you're looking at is just over 100, so about a third of the size that you can build. So you can build pretty big, I guess, but the fact that it's limited, it's probably because the game has to be played online on an official server. Even in single player, which I don't know about that. I mean, it felt like I was even lagging half the time, despite the fact that I was playing alone on a server days before release. Overall, to me, the building system, it feels a lot like Ark or Icarus, even Pal World to some extent, but there was nothing here that set it apart from some of those other games. It just felt very bland to me. And finally, I just want to touch on Nightingale as a survival game. Survival games are meant to be long and drawn out and slow, and Nightingale certainly is slow, and maybe that's one of the things that got me the most. Even though survival games can be dull, usually there's some kind of an element that balances it out to make the tedium worthwhile. But in Nightingale, I yearned for so many quality of life features that I just wanted to give up pretty much every 15 minutes when I encountered yet another barrier. I couldn't really get any momentum going or really get into the flow of things, even during my third playthrough. Am I doing this wrong? Where's my fish? So let me just touch on a few of the survival game type of elements. First of all, there's a lot of walking. The realms are procedurally generated without roads or paths, so a lot of the time I was just clambering around over randomly generated rock formations that were obscuring my pathway to some point of interest. There seems to be a lot of animal variety from realm to realm, which is pretty good, but only a few of those animals seem to spawn per realm. So for the most part, you're basically going to see the same lizard deer and wolves, or in the desert, it's going to be the same giant grasshoppers and tree creatures everywhere, which got old very quickly. And by the way, I deleted all the footage from that desert run entirely due to my frustration, so no visual aids on that front. And speaking of frustrating, then there's the frustrating interface, which has undergone a massive overhaul at the 11th hour before release due to popular demand. So at least the devs are making some adjustments based on player feedback, but I still had a hard time getting used to all of the menus. I mean, of course, you can learn this stuff. You spend enough time playing it, you're gonna get familiar with it, but these things should be intuitive. We all have a certain gaming IQ at this point from playing survival games long enough. I should be able to just look at a game interface and instantly be able to recognize familiar elements. But in Nightingale, this was not the case. I had to study every single part of every single page just to get a handle on things. And honestly, don't even get me started on inventory management because it was such a slog. It was practically unbearable. Trying to keep things organized, it's so bad that I'm not even gonna break it down any further. It just plain sucked. Exploration is one of the things that they touted as being one of the big features, and well, let's just say you can explore. Scattered about are various dungeons, which feel criminally empty to me, with very little to search through, destroy, or discover. Many areas have puzzles to solve in order to unlock new areas or obtain some sort of treasure, and in my experience, it was generally some kind of a blueprint to allow you to craft some other item. But the puzzles, in my experience, were pretty much all the same. It's basically activate a button in some specific order, win a prize. And the novelty wore off on that after doing it one time, basically. I could probably go on and on, but I'm just tired of even thinking about it. Suffice it to say, I will not play Nightingale again anytime soon. Perhaps even until its 1.0 release. Maybe early access is going to be the best thing for Nightingale, as we can provide opinions and feedback like I have today to the devs, and hopefully see some change in the future. But for now, I'm just done. There are far better survival games out there right now, if you ask me, and I simply want to enjoy those ones instead. Now, I guess technically you can call me an influencer, although even saying that leaves a sour taste in my mouth, but my point is, don't let me influence your decision one way or the other on this. If you think that you're going to enjoy Nightingale and you're excited about it, then by all means, I think that you should try it. A lot of people are going to enjoy the crap out of this game, but you can only experience the first playthrough of a game once, and the game promises to get better over time. So I'm gonna hold off on this one and save the precious first experience, or first full playthrough for another time, when Nightingale has had a little bit more time to cook. Anyway, this is probably the first ever and maybe only ever negative review I've done on this channel, and I certainly don't want to make a habit of it. I only did this because I did so much pre-release coverage of Nightingale that I didn't just want to ghost everyone and not make content and not provide any sort of explanation as to why. If you decide to enter the realms, I wish you the absolute best of luck. I hope you have an awesome experience out there without me. Just know I will be keeping an eye on development, and I'll be eager to try it again in the future.